January 14th, 2026 VAR large meeting in the public meeting room at 2 George Street. My name is Stephen Ramos, and I'll be serving as chairman this afternoon. The other board members present this afternoon are James Metters, Seton Brown, Joel Trantham, and Jay White. City staff present are B.D. Wortham Galvin, Lauren Whitney, and Brad Thomas. Applicants have been required to submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Staff will control the slide presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask staff to advance the slide to the next slide during the presentation. And we also have a clicker. So we need to amend this. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name when speaking. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the City of Charleston public meeting channel on YouTube. Your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. The order of the meeting will be as follows. First, there will be an introduction and overview of the project by the city staff to the board and for the public. Next, there will be the applicant presentation, which is a 10-minute time limit as determined by the chair, and with any questions of the applicant by the board or staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, be it owners, developers, designers, consultants, etc., should speak during the applicant portion of rather than public comment. Next is public comment. All applications are part of a public meeting. Written public comments were due by noon the day prior to the meeting, and any received comments have been transmitted to and considered by board members. Written comments will not be read aloud during the meeting unless requested by a member of the board and with permission by the chair. Any member of the public who wishes to be heard in person on an agenda item at this time is requested to state their name and address for the record and to be reminded there is a 2-minute limit to these remarks unless extended by the chair. Applicant does not respond to comments made during this public comment portion. Next is city staff comments and recommendation, followed by an applicant response or clarification to both public comments and city staff comments and recommendation. This response has a 5-minute time limit, and the applicant does not have to use the applicant response period if they do not feel it necessary. Next is the board discussion and vote. The applicant presentation is over at this point and public comment is closed. Applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and for their vote on a motion. The chair shall reread a motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if he has not reread the motion accurately. Once a motion is in proper order and seconded, each member when voting should respond yay in favor or nay in favor. Results will be posted on the city website. There is one item that was withdrawn. That is item B2, 989 Morrison Drive, which was withdrawn by staff. There was no submitted public comment online. And as a final reminder, please turn off all cell phones or silence them and any other potentially disruptive devices. And please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to parking, comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, and lot coverage, as well as livability concerns, are not in the purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. We will start off with item A, the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? There's a motion made by Mr. Metters to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Brown. Mr. White, how do you vote?
I'm going to abstain because it wasn't there.
Mr. Trantham?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters? And the chair votes yay in favor. The motion passes. The next application is item B1, 635 King Street.
Agenda item 1, 635 King Street is new construction in the old and historic district as well as the Old City District over the larger project. They are here today requesting approval of a mock-up panel. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then following that, we are ready for applicant presentation.
And for Mr. Satil, you get started. You are a gifted speaker, and we are excited to hear from you. But we would like to remind you and your team that we're here to review the construction quality of the mock-up panel. So if you could keep your commentary focused on that, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. And I realized everyone had the chance to visit the site yesterday. So just a quick introduction. My name is Christine Sotil, Civic Design Architect for 635 King Street. I'm joined today with Craig Clements, also from our team at Social team members of LS3P, who are collaborating architects, and members of the Greystar development team. So we are incredibly excited to be at this point in what's been a very special project and really a journey of love and an incredible amount of work going back to 2022. And I'm not going to give a presentation about all of that. I did include some of the images just as a reminder. But I want to thank each of you all on the board for making time to come to the site yesterday to see the work in progress, as well as the staff who have been coordinating with us continuously throughout this process. I also have to give a special thanks to the American College of Building Arts. They have been incredible partners with us on this journey of now 3 years, really closer to 4, to bring this building to life. In fact, I was just there this afternoon, and there's more coming. There's so much that we can't show you that is being made for this building. But just over the last year, 68 stone medallions have been carved for the building. Capitals and bases have been sculpted for 130 pilaster bases and capitals. Numerous unique keystones have been carved and much more. So special thanks to these incredible artisans that will be making Charleston. And a special thanks as well to the builders and the masons who've done an incredible job with this work on this thing. So I'm not going to give a presentation. You all had a chance to see it. I just wanted to say how excited we are about the progress, and we're glad to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, can I join me doing that? If there are questions at this point, or we'll proceed to the next stage.
Any questions from the board? Okay, at this point, we will open it up to public comment. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak on this application?
Kate Utility for Charleston Foundation. HCF appreciated the opportunity to visit the site yesterday and experience the high quality of materials and architectural design. We thank the applicant and their team, as well as the students of ACBA, for their work, and we look forward to seeing more projects like this that continue to set a high standard. We recommend approval of this application. Thank you.
And Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We would like to echo those same comments. We appreciate the opportunity to visit the site yesterday, and we are really hopeful that the full execution of this project will be an example that other projects can follow for generations to come. So thank you very much.
At this point, we will move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
Okay. This is a relatively large and complex mock-up. It shows workmanship on a variety of conditions. An additional submittal was prepared by the applicant showing where conditions occurred on the mock-up that would not actually occur on the building. These conditions are limited and should not lead to confusion. This clarification has been transmitted to board members. It was also part of the application. But it's the page that has green annotations on it. There's 2 pages for anybody who's interested. Different sealant colors may be required at varying conditions. Care will need to be exercised in their application. Despite some unfortunate placement of sealants on the mock-up, staff is assured, based on discussions with the general contractor and applicant, that everyone is treating this seriously and that these conditions will be effectively handled. It is understood that the applicant is showing 2 mortar conditions on the mock-up, with the lighter mortar being at the top of the structure. The copper seaming was uneven and will need more attention to workmanship during the construction. The applicant may want to discuss the potential staining of copper elements onto materials below board, but maybe not. The board doesn't have any questions. While the overall workmanship shown on the mock-up is good, translating this level to a large building may be challenging, and yet the involved parties appear very committed to attaining that goal. Staff conditions: a thorough building-wide examination of sealants required will be needed to address the many conditions requiring them. And 2, attention to the workmanship of the copper seaming during construction is required. And staff recommendation is approval of mock-up with board and staff comments and conditions.
Would the applicant like to speak to either the public comments or city staff?
Just briefly to thank staff for the comments, and we agree with both of those comments and those conditions. We're actively working on addressing. We've determined there are 22 conditions. So we have 3 samples of sealant colors for, so we fully intend to work through that particular process very carefully. And what we'd like to do is have staff come out to confirm those, what we believe are the best final selections for those conditions, as well with the edits to some of the copper detailing. So thank you, Pedro.
Thank you. Board discussion and vote.
So I'll start, Christian. Thanks for meeting with me yesterday. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but I forgot my glasses. So I've been trying to so I'm gonna give it a shot. But you'll not be surprised by anything I say because we discussed it thoroughly yesterday. There's slight offsets in some of the moldings that provide detail that just need to be adjusted. Now, on this elevated floor, the enclosed railing system that was between the 2 columns, there's a piece of wood on the bottom of it that the right side of it is just much lower than the left side. I'm not sure what that is, but it's visible. Caulking, of course, has already been mentioned. The transitions of the copper and molding to the brick, and the gaps that were there were significant, and we discussed, is that background caulk, is that how that's going to happen? And then the most for me, and the thing we talked the most about was the unacceptable copper seaming, right? On the standpoint of the thing actually being rolled the other way, to a consistency in that seam the whole way. And I think it's important for that to be reworked, and I'm okay with that being a condition that Edie and Lawrence go back and look at. Other things, it's clear that they could be worked out. It's a complex model, but that copper work, for me, it's important for that to be corrected and then approved by y'all before the markup spread.
I agree with those comments. I stopped by Monday afternoon. There was a little bit of rework going on at that time. It was late in the afternoon, and the one thing that jumped out to me the most was the copper metalwork, sheet metal work. And if your sheet metal guys are curious of how to do that compound curvature, actually, the roof of the gazebo in Hampton Park, I've noticed that today that ridge seam is perfect, and so it is achievable. And I also noticed that there was a varying gap in the big arch there on the east side of mock-up between the brickwork and the metal. And it feels like the accuracy can be tightened on it. This is an ambitious project, But in order for it to be truly successful and to be the sort of, exemplar that the PSC and HCF are talking about, the execution has to be flawless.
I think there was one other condition that we noted on site and it was discussed, so I don't think this will come, is where the trim at the lower part of the balcony met the brick. I believe there was going to be a solution to turn the brick back so that that could meet rather than being scribed to the brick in kind of a straight condition. But I'm also fine with that being addressed by staff and all the other comments that have been said here. Y'all have covered everything I had to say.
I guess I echo everybody's comment. I mean, a lot of the parts of it are really extraordinary and exciting, and I think everybody is really excited about seeing the real building after seeing the mock-up. So that's it's a testament to the design. Especially the masonry is just really exceptional. I think, as people have noted, it's the junction of different materials where it almost seems incomplete. As you noted, the bay window, there's just a lot of geometry coming together, and so I think that's often the areas that we target on all these mock-ups. Is the joints. The middle of the wall is the easy part, but what happens when it dies? So, but considering care taken to this as a whole, I think we all have confidence that they'll be able to lift that up. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval with board and staff comments.
There is a motion for approval with board and staff comments. Is there a second?
As quick amendment, you want to add in conditions as well?
Oh, well, but yeah, any staff comments, conditions, and board comments.
And part of the discussion also that the PD and launch will review it again.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
I'll second.
So I'm gonna just say that one more time. Motion by Mr. White for approval with board and staff comments, staff conditions, including a final review by staff.
I don't know best.
Final review by staff. Good. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Metters. Mr. White, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Trantham,
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown,
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Metters.
Yay.
The chair votes yea in favor, and the motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we are moving on to item number 3, 474 Meeting Street.
474 Meeting Street is new construction in the Old Historic District and Old City District in Height District 4. And they're requesting conceptual approval of a mixed-use affordable housing building. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we are ready for applicant presentation.
Thank you for that introduction, BD. My name is Brianna Daring with LSAC, and I'm here on behalf of our client, Star Gospel Mission, who I'm sure by this point you all know very well. And I'm excited to be here to present our BAR conception and design for 474 Meeting Street. You've heard this before, but to reiterate, the mission of this design is to provide a dignified and welcoming space anchored by faith and attainability. This ethos has been with us from the beginning of the project and has informed many decisions throughout the design process. Here you can see that our property is dashed in that yellow dashed line. The building that you see on site there at the moment is the current Star Gospel Mission and was reviewed by the board on the December 10th meeting and received full demolition approval. Our site is surrounded by Meeting Street on the west, Nassau Street on the east, Line Street on the north, and then Columbus Street at the south. The 474 Meeting Street building is mid-block, but our property extends toward Nassau Street. You all have seen this site plan before when you all reviewed 89.5 and 91.5 Nassau at that same December 10th meeting. The site really hasn't changed much since then, but for a brief overview, we have our driveway coming off of Nassau Street on the east with some parking as well as utilities, transformers, trash enclosures, etc. And in addition, the building we're talking about today is mid-block and houses a lot of the main program resources for the entire campus. We also have an easement off of Meeting Street that then wraps down towards Columbus Street. Again, I'm not going to focus on the site too much. You all spoke favorably at the last meeting, so if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. Like I mentioned, our building is really centered mid-block. Depending on the street, it's between 135 and 200 feet off of the different streets. We are surrounded by retail along Meeting Street, which is between 1 to 2 stories, but sits in a 4-story height district. And then we're surrounded by the east side neighborhoods on the east. And those buildings are typically between 1 story and maybe up to 3.5 stories, depending on location. The majority of our program on the first floor is really focused on not only serving the tenants of the 474 Meeting Street building, but also the entire Star Gospel Mission campus. The first floor will house elements like dining areas, a commercial kitchen, laundry services, meeting spaces, as well as office space for the Star Gospel Mission employees. We're showcasing our massive 4 stories, and levels 2 through 4 will be reserved for living space for those who are working their way through homelessness. As I mentioned in the ethos at the beginning of the presentation, faith really is the heart of Star Gospel Mission. Because of that, we wanted to focus and emphasize the chapel as the heart of the building, and we want to express that warmly on the exterior of the facade. We focused that chapel mass aligned with that Meeting Street easement, and it terminates directly in a garden at the back of the property. Above that chapel, the form is elevated, creating a beacon that can be seen from Meeting Street. We've had a lot of elements to focus on throughout the duration of the project that have influenced what you're seeing here today, one of which is being cost conscious. Our windows are very specifically located, not only in quantity, but also in placement and location based on the program inside the building and what the program really needs. In addition, we have located a 2-story frame that groups the windows at levels 2 and 3 to create a steady rhythm along the entire facade. But we still wanted the chapel to feel a little unique and special. When that chapel warm inset is created at the front entry, that directly aligns with the offset peak of the gable above. In addition, when the cross is introduced onto the facade, the windows adjacent genuflect to its presence, offsetting from the windows on the floors above and below. With all of these different decisions, ultimately you get a contemporary building that still has a whimsical character from Meeting Street, creating that beacon. Here you'll just see a few precedents of more unique window fenestration conditions throughout the city of Charleston. On the top left, we have First Baptist Church, which is a mid-block building similar to our site. On the bottom left, you have East Central Lofts, which expresses itself on UG Street. At the bottom right, we have Logami, which is offset from King Street. And then in the top right, we all have seen many Charleston singles that have offset windows throughout their side facades. Ultimately, our concept, we feel, is very simple, but we do want the details of our building to feel refined. Here is just an example of detail conditions that you would be seeing more further refined in preliminary phase. Again, more details that we would be focusing on as we move forward. Everything I mentioned in this presentation is embodied in this view from Meeting Street, creating that beacon at the end of the easement. Here you can also see that inset entry with that warm material wrapping. As you move towards Columbus Street, those windows that are affected at the 3rd floor continue to be offset as you wrap the building. Similarly, that warm material continues to wrap at the ground floor,
holding in that chapel mass. And the logic at Nassau Street very much follows the same logic on the rest of the building. It just comes to the back of the street. From this view, you can also start to see some of those site elements that you've heard about in other BAR meetings with that, fencing at the street as well as a trash enclosure beyond. In terms of our streetscape, as I've mentioned, you can see the Charleston singles along the East Nassau Street facade, as well as some of those retail spaces along Meeting, Columbus, and Line Streets, and then our building offset mid-block beyond. In terms of materiality, we're really looking at a majority composite building with varying exposures. So we're utilizing a different exposure on the first floor compared to levels 2 through 4. In addition, that warm material I've been referencing is intended to be a wood look or wood material in vertical orientation that wraps that chapel mass. We also are very conscious on many fiber cement buildings. One of the challenges is creating depth in the facade. It can be very flat. And so to counteract that, we are planning for projected window frames around the windows to increase that feel of that window depth. In addition, those 2-story frames that wrap at level 2 and 3 have a vertical slat infill to create a textural difference, but to also enhance the verticality at that location. We are also utilizing downspouts as our drainage method for the roof, but those downspouts are creating our, dividing element throughout the facade. That's it. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for the applicant? You're off the hook. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll open it up to any public comment regarding this project. Hearing none, we'll move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
Thank you. This project involves the construction of 3 new structures across the site. As mentioned, the 2 other structures on Nassau Street have already received preliminary approval by the board. The extent of the entire project is over 2 height districts, but this specific submittal is in Height District 4. City Council passed a resolution on January 24th, 2023, establishing the Priority Status Affordable Housing Program that provides special benefits and advantages during the development review process to residential and mixed-use developments that make certain impactful contributions towards the city's supply of affordable housing. This project comes under the auspices of this program. Thus, while the board generally does not consider cost when deliberating on projects, the BAR must balance the Priority Status Affordable Housing Program with maintaining quality design for all residents in all types of housing situations. The context of the site varies in height, mass, and building typologies, and this project sits mid-block between Meeting and Nassau Streets, making it less visible, particularly from Meeting Street. Staff support height, scale, and mass of the proposal. Staff support the metal fence with stucco knee wall and post as shown, as well as the hardscape landscape material board. Staff appreciate the alignment of the chapel with the sightline to the structure from Meeting Street, terminating with a garden at the rear. Staff support the distinction made in the gable roof form to highlight the chapel portion of the structure, as well as the differentiation in ground level materials and the playful yet purposefully arranged window pattern in the chapel mass drawing from Charleston precedents. The residential mass and elevation are less visible from Meeting Street. Staff appreciate the attempt to break down the mass and provide a vertical rhythm through recessed drains. While the applicant is unable to provide windows in all potential fenestration moments, the articulation of the blank wall where one might expect windows is appreciated and provides visual relief on the wall surface. Staff support the material detail precedent shown and note that the workmanship and craft will be key in the success of this modest architectural direction. Staff conditions: bring physical samples of materials to the preliminary review. And staff recommendation is for conceptual approval with board and staff comments and conditions.
Ms. Deering-Wyrick, would you like to address, there wasn't public comment, would you like to address city staff comments
No, thank you for your comments.
or discussion?
I might have one question for the applicant, just because it was noted in staff. Are the drains recessed or are they applied?
The downspouts are applied. We did add a detail at the top of the downspout that has a recessed portion that would be a darker color to kind of accentuate the top portion of that condition.
I should have said partially recessed.
Okay, sorry.
So, I appreciated your thoughtful presentation and the thoughtful way you thought about the interior when planning the exterior and vice versa. And it's about the mission and the goal. I thought your precedent photos for details were good. So many times that doesn't happen in these presentations, and I thank you for that. The offset roof above the south end of, and I understand your reason for doing it, but for me, it feels imbalanced. It's especially because of the staggering of the windows, yet you have a mission and a reason for doing that. I get it. Also, the staggering of the windows on the south side, it also feels awkward to me, especially when the wall is divided into what looks like about 3 equal sections, as you were just talking about, by the downspouts. That's all I have.
I appreciate a modern look, especially when it's removed from the public right of way. The chapel mass is an area of concern for me just because of its lacking of asymmetry. The precedent examples that you showed throughout the city where the fenestration is unbalanced are all on non-primary facades to the building. They're not on the streetscape side. So with the chapel mass at the the fenestration on the west side does look unbalanced to me as well. The secondary and tertiary sides wouldn't be as much of a bother. But that's an area of concern for me. Everything else, but
I probably have a little bit of a different take than my two colleagues up here. And I do think there's a real beauty in the simplicity of the design as it's been presented. I think it does have a clear and restrained language. I think there's a little bit of play in it, but then there's also kind of a gathering of certain elements and a rhythm that I can read through here. I think the windows, especially where they're kind of brought together and they kind of bridge those different levels are particularly successful. But where I think I'm kind of running into a little bit of a concern, and I don't know if it's as much a concern, is really in the massing of these elements. Like Lawrence, if you were to go to page, let me see, 12. Page 12, diagram 1 shows kind of the 4 elements and then how that fenestration rhythm kind of works with those elements and changes as 1, 2, 3, and then 4 as you're setting it up here. But I have a feeling, especially with the applied gutter and the scupper, that it's probably going to read more like the diagram, if you don't mind going to page 11. Here, where it's actually 2 separate masses. And I think your window strategy is actually reinforcing the 2 separate masses with playful windows on one and articulated. And I think the 2 different strategies of how you're trying to break down this building are kind of conflicting with each other. And so as I look at how to kind of evaluate it at the scale, I think the 4 is possibly more successful, but then it would be an exterior fenestration material or an offset or a recess or a way to break up those masses because as you do go, I know this is an inset building, but I believe the elevations are on page 19, if you don't mind, Lawrence, going to those. Especially looking at Nassau Street, the way that this building sits using a kind of siding material that corresponds to some of the different elements that are on that street, but so much larger than what they are. It's really the vertical breaking of it that's really going to help that mass kind of sit in a different context. And so I think, in my opinion, having a better resolution on that would help at this stage. if it does go to preliminary, or if we do, then I think that would be a specific consideration that would have to be addressed. And I think it'd be addressed by changing material. I think it'd be addressed by changing form. I think it needs some resolution between those two items. I think the playfulness of the window and the offset don't necessarily bother me because I see how those correspond to the way that the recess at the first level is working. But I think it's working against your strategy to break down the mass. I guess those are my kind of comments.
You know, it's funny, I actually thought, well, for a mid-block building that is so deeply embedded within one of the city's larger blocks, I understand understand the logic and the strategy, and I appreciate the consideration that we need to give it, give it its use. So unlike my normal habit, I wasn't going to quibble with this one too much. What I would say is that when you strip a building down to its bones, the bones have to shine, like the detailing. And I know economy is in everybody's mind as you proceed to detailing and constructing this thing, but what you've got here will require a lot of precision in order to achieve, and that's just, I don't think that's impossible, but it's going to be a challenge. You'll spend some time on that job site.
Well, I would agree with Mr. White about it being mid-block, and with that placement, I think there's a little more artistic freedom in the building. And I had to admit, when I first looked at it, just looking at the rendering and the asymmetric roof, I said, "Why? What is that? Why is it like that?" And but understanding that it has a civic presence, and it's this chapel. And if it was a symmetrical gable, it would have a more of a domestic appearance, a residential appearance. So that piece and it being kind of the special part of the site, and I could get on board with it. In fact, I almost wondered if the playful windows, could be more playful on the chapel piece to really highlight it as this unique piece of the project. So now we've got 5 different opinions.
Yeah.
I also agree that the detailing, I think that very contemporary details can have an appeal, but they're sometimes hard to pull off. And these vernacular details like overhangs at eaves and rakes are designed so that they don't fail. And so anytime I see like no rake on a roof, I just get concerned about it. Especially one like this where the maintenance to get somebody up there is not going to be easy. So I think just be wary that when you try to be overly inventive with details, there might be a reason why they were done a certain way for a long time. So anybody want to entertain a motion?
I would add that I'd like for us to try to find a way to move this forward, given the mission and given the ordinance that is following it. And I think that the comments that have come forth from the board, although there's been a variety, I think they're all actionable as the project moves forward. I think.
So
I was recently involved in a project where they wanted no trim on the interior. So, you'd have a 1/4 inch off the floor, and they said, won't that make the cost be less?
Mm.
And regardless of what I said at the beginning of this, this is a difficult building to maintain over time. And I want to make sure we do our job to make sure that we help push it along, but we also push it along in a responsible way. I'm not talking about whether the windows go where they are, but So just pushing it along. Everybody here has said the same thing. It's going to be expensive going to maintain, so maybe we don't worry about that. Maybe we talk about it again as we push it forward. And I don't know how to do that.
Well, being that this is conceptual, height, scale, mass, and general architectural direction, and I would think that a lot of like the detail related questions could be addressed preliminary.
Okay.
And then the question is for the board, there's been varying opinions on windows and roof shapes. Do any of you all feel like that needs to be studied? That's just a question.
Well, yeah, I said it, so I feel like it should be studied, but that doesn't mean we support it. We came back after studying, and this is still the reason that we are presenting.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of the elements that I brought up are gonna come down to decisions that would relate to the specific material pattern, way that that's being treated in breaking down the mass that would be reviewed at preliminary. So I do think the comments that I made could be addressed, but I think it would need a very specific restudy of how that is actually working and coming together. And I think that's up to the applicant. I don't think I want to attach any specific conditions to it. I think that as they look at different materials that could be, or different ways to treat the material that's proposed, that it does do what the diagram towards massing is showing.
So is that the beginning of a motion?
That sure sounds like it.
Okay, let me think. Make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and conditions and board conditions to restudy the form, can come back in the way that it's presented if that's the best study, or if there are adjustments needed, but just to restudy it. And then also restudy the elevations and materials to reinforce the massing as presented.
Motions always work better if they're in complete sentences, so that's great. I'll second that.
Let me reread it.
Oh, you didn't get all of it?
Down.
You might be able to cut out a few words from that as it moves forward. Okay.
Captures the spirit of it. All right, conceptual approval with staff comments and conditions and board conditions to restudy the form and elevations and materials to reinforce the massing as presented.
Yes.
Sounds lovely.
Mr. White, how do you vote? Oh, actually, who's this? Is there a second?
Oh, I second it.
Okay.
I ran out in front.
Seconded by Mr. White. Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Yay in favor.
Yay in favor.
The chair votes yay in favor. But I like the part about reinforcing, because I think that's, we're not saying just restudy the massing, the study, just how it really integrates the whole design. Thank you. Okay, we are now on to the item number 6, which is 162 Ashley Avenue.
162 Ashley Avenue is new construction in Height District 8530 in the Old City District, and they are requesting preliminary approval of an apartment building with ground level retail. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we will be ready for applicant presentation whenever they are ready.
Is this a good spot for the materials or?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Jeffrey Rendering with L3P. I'm here on behalf of our clients, White Lion Capital, sorry. Okay, here we go. We received two major comments, or two main comments, I should say, from our last conceptual approval. And mainly to study the material of fiber cement to something more closely appropriate, potentially like a channel gap or a nickel gap siding. And also to explore the offset from the upper mass that we'll talk about as well. Here you can see the kind of main view from, this is from MUSC's horseshoe here. The comparisons between conceptual approval on the left, preliminary on the right. It's going to be the same setup on each of these renderings for y'all. Again, we understand the need to set that top floor back as far as possible. We further studied this, and we were able to achieve a 6-inch offset from the face of studs to face of studs from the floor below and the floor above there. So that channel gap siding, you see the darker material was set 6 inches back from the metal panel itself. This is kind of the max we were able to get to without introducing steel structure in that, as well as kind of taking away from the units and making them unusable on that floor. Fiber cement was also replaced. I think we mentioned fiber cement previously, that darker material being fiber cement. And it's going to be replaced with a painted 5-inch thick channel gap siding, which you can see on front. And I'll kind of dive into these materials a little bit more. Architecturally and design wise, not much else has really changed. We'll dive into a few changes here and there as we go through these renderings, but just wanted to kind of talk about the materials for a little bit. The brick you see and out here in front will be a white body brick. Has varying brick patterns on the building. Most of it is a standard running bond. The base will have an alternating recessed brick. You saw that in the details, I'm sure. And then at the band at the second floor and the cornice will be a soldier stacked brick pattern. The metal wall panel, as you see there, is a is a triangular ribbed profile with concealed fasteners. And that's going to be a champagne bronze, which again, you can see that down here in the middle. Sorry. And this is the profile of that metal panel wall there. I don't know if you want to see this one. The darker material you see there is the channel gap siding. Again, that's 5-inch thick, hardy artisan square channel gap siding. And that is painted with a Charleston green paint color. You can see those again on the bottom left. Or bottom right. As we step into the building, the entry, one kind of small change had occurred when we dove into the code. The porch element, the soffit, all that has to be made of non-combustible material. Ideally, we were hoping to do real wood like a cypress or a thermarie product, but unfortunately, those are both combustible, and so we are replacing those with a metal wood look panel there, which you can see on this board as well.
Which one's that, Jeff?
That is this one here.
Yeah.
We also had that material at the recessed entry on that facade there, but we didn't feel that metal wood look appropriate down there. Obviously, you start touching that, you know that's not real wood, and so the authenticity we didn't really appreciate that. We also had a cast in place wall behind that. That was for our stormwater vault. And so we elected to actually apply a board form finish to that cast in place wall there to allude to this wood soffit. You can see that a little bit better here. We also applied, replaced the brick planters with that same board form concrete. So that reduces the materiality on the base there and has the same move. Also on this base, you'll see another metal wall panel. It's the same type of panel, just a different pattern. Triangular ribbed, just additional rib on that. And that will be in a darker material that you can see there on the board. And that extends beyond and conceals the transformer yard as well. All the steel and really all the color you see other than the metal I'm pointing out is going to be that Charleston paint color, that Charleston green color. So all the steel have a high performance coating on it and painted with that Charleston. This is the view down Ashley. Again, nothing really isn't noted to change from the two previously other than the offsets that we discussed. The cornice was simplified a little bit more when we got into the details. That's above the channel gap siding there. And so now it is going to be an FRP cornice profile. So you saw that in the details as well. Looking at the alleyway between the parking garage and our building, some of the major changes really is the downspouts were removed. So we simplified the roof slope. So we're sloping to the north, that way the water can go directly into our stormwater vault. And so we removed those from that south facade. The extruded frames around the windows there that you see will also be FRP, and they will be painted in that Charleston green. Let's see here. The other thing I wanted to note was the windows. We are doing operable casement windows wherever possible. Obviously, when there's vents nearby, they will have to be fixed windows, but wherever we can, we'll do operable windows. They are aluminum clad wood with a vinyl core. We selected a color of these windows so that the vinyl core is also matches the exterior. So when the window opens, you will not notice that it's a vinyl core and it'll have the same color. This is an example. This is not the color, but this is an example of that window and the simplicity of that profile. And you can also see that vinyl core. This little portion would be exposed when it's open, but again, this will match the exterior. We selected the color on the outside that would match, and that is this guy here. Would you like me to pass this along, or you
Hey, Mr. Engineering, I can tell Mr. Matters wants.
I was thinking so. Nothing much to note on the north elevation here. Again, just that offset change. Everything else is similar. And I'm going to hand it over to our landscape architect, DeAndre.
Hi, thanks. Deandra Center with Stephen Whiteside. The building, as you can see, takes up a majority of the site. So as far as landscape and hardscape, new elements, limited, but we can still have an impact on what we're doing. Landscape, traditional Charleston plant palette with focus on seasonal change and textures. The existing alley, we're working with MUSC. Really, we want to keep that as it is. So the materials there are going to stay. It's concrete and pavers. But we have had some modifications on our side of it to allow for access into the building, as well as relocating the 4 benches that currently exist there. Standard concrete sidewalk along, just matching what's there, along Ashley Ave. The planters are rather thin on the along Ashley Ave and on the north side, so just working with the plant material that will fit there in the long term and still add some interest. And lastly, CARTA did ask us to relocate and do a new bus station. So you'll notice we have incorporated, and it looks better, probably in the rendering, bring back up.
Yeah.
We have incorporated a bench into the planters on our site so that it's just a nice bus stop for CARTA. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll switch back real quick just to point out that. You can see that right here. So originally CARTA asked us to put one out in front, and we worked with CARTA to use one of their standard benches that they approved and integrate that into our planter bed.
Mr. Redder, you have 1 minute.
Okay.
Do you need extra time?
That please.
Sure.
I'll try to keep it quick.
1 minute.
All right. Elevations, I won't go on these too long, but I did want to point out that as you look closely, the exhaust and intake vents are modeled and are shown on these elevations. Our team did a great deal to put the mechanicals and place all of these in the dark material wherever possible. There is only one section, one unit that unfortunately could not get to the darker material that conceal those, and that is on the furthest unit away from Ashley Avenue. And so all those vents will be either black or painted to match. And then the rest of the vents and the units are placed on the south side. And then the brick, and those will be white again to kind of blend into the brick. You know, we put a great deal of effort, and really this is a kind of a preliminary plus set, we believe, for all our details. So I don't want to go through all of them. Again, we were happy to take as many questions as possible from you all as you dove into the details and to answer any of those. Lawrence, it may be easier if you could help me skip to the very last slide or second last slide. We did include a mock-up panel in this set. We understand that typically is in the final, for final review, but we wanted to include that for y'all to see that we are a little bit further than preliminary, and also for your consideration to look at that. We are asking as you deliberate we could get final details to staff. So we are happy to answer as many questions as you have on our details and dive into them as far as we can.
Is it the last slide in the appendix?
Yes,
Or
the very last slide,
94 in the slide.
94, okay.
Does that impress you, Mr. White?
I mean,
I knew it on our end.
I,
I was like, oh, that's true.
I had no doubts.
And I just realized I'm wearing Charleston green. It was unconscious.
Yeah, please keep going. It's
Yeah,
past.
oh, yeah, it's, some of the detail pages they're a little slow sometimes on the computer.
Right for that. There you go.
There.
This is our mock-up panel that includes all materials and a little bit of the porch as well to get the details correct. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, are there any questions?
Yes.
So you know what happens when you include all those extra
That's right.
columns? A 351.1.
Page 21. Page 21 says,
Oh.
I can see it. Come up here.
And maybe I can do it in words. But I just want placement of some of the weeps. The fact that they reoccur. Every 25 inches. Some of them are placed in areas where it looks like it doesn't need to have a weep, but I need to ask a question. Are they all for airflow also?
Some of them are for airflow as well.
So I was trying to figure out why. You would have some of those locations, they're visible.
Is there a specific one?
Yeah, I think I wrote the sheet. That we 1.1, I don't know what. The,
We place them at the top of conditions and the bottom of the conditions for airflow as well.
okay.
Yeah, like A5 has it at the top.
So yeah, you can see
Yeah,
C1, there's
it's
one
like
towards the
that.
top, and A3, there's one towards the top.
And you've got these flashing details right here. You wouldn't ordinarily think that you need to have a weep right here because you've got flashing right above it. Yes, but the question was, make sure I ask it right. Yeah, for air movement also. Okay. That's a lot.
That would just be in that spandrel section, not across the whole facade.
It does make sense, but that's not the way I read it. So
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question about your mock-up panel drawing. Are you intending the handrail detail in that to show the top of the porch or the bottom of the porch? So you have a handrail that is on the terrace and you have a handrail that's on top of the porch. It appears that that's reflecting the kind of top of the porch detail.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to confirm that that's what
Yeah.
your intention was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar handrail to bottom of the porch, not the balcony. if That's what you mean.
Yes.
It's very similar details, still cable rail.
And the floor material, is that the same between the top and the bottom as well?
Yes. Both a paver system, concrete paver system.
You had another question?
I did, so interesting. There's exterior lighting partners. Really separate from the exterior lighting partner.
And if,
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's in the submittal,
It's in the submittal.
we certainly you can
Yeah.
comment on it, and
Yeah.
I know that final details to staff. Mr. Courtney, there's a thorough lighting review as well, but if-
Since they did a preliminary plus, as Mr. Ringieri said, anything that's in there is up for grabs in terms of commentary and could be conditioned into the.
So I don't know
Next
about
phase.
those lights that are part of the submittal, so I'm just. Bringing it up. And the last thing is, there's sections of material right there. They're coated, but they're aluminum.
Yes.
when they're cut as part of the installation, what happens to the end grain? This is just really for information for me,
Yeah.
because we won't see it.
Yeah, they finish them on field when they cut, and they have like a splice panel. So there won't be a J track or anything like that. There'll be a splice panel that goes behind the two seams, so you don't see any actual like express seams.
Thank you.
I have one other question for you too, just knowing this is it. A 353. At the stairs, it shows a color differentiation between the metal panel that's at the stair and the metal panel that's at the terrace, the same for the coping material. But the renderings show a kind of continuous dark material. Is it, which one?
It's continuous. I think this might be a PDF printing error.
Any other questions? At this point, we will open it up to public comment. Anybody from the public who would like to speak on this application? Okay, hearing none, city staff comments and recommendation.
This project received conceptual approval by the board on May 14th, 2025. Board and staff comments, which the applicant has expressed, but I will repeat, included one, to study a more volumetric shift and or an increase in the change of depth that occurs on the elevation of material transitions. Board comment being more the former, staff comment being the latter. And second, to explore other higher end contemporary and more context sensitive material as an alternative to fiber cement siding such as nickel or channel gap, and provide samples at preliminary review. The applicant did not make a volumetric shift as stated, but as noted, the metal panel face is offset 6 inches from the channel gap finish, and they have contrasted the light metal panel with the darker channel gap to accentuate this dimensional change. Staff is satisfied with these approaches. The applicant has substituted the previous Charleston green fiber cement board with the painted channel gap siding. Staff support this substitution, and staff support modifications and details as shown in this submittal. We have no conditions, and our recommendation is for preliminary approval with board and staff comments and conditions and final review by staff.
Would the applicant like to address any city staff comments?
No response, but thank you for your comments.
Board discussion.
Guess I can lead off too. I think at the last conversation, I was the one that spoke about that volumetric shift, and looking at the drawings, I do appreciate the level of detail in this drawing set because it did satisfy a lot of the questions that I have. I do feel like the differentiation of the metal panels, the shift in those between the way the sidings are going to create that kind of varied facade that we're looking for, and did really address that comment as well. I did think there was a nice play of patterns in both the masonry and the kind of siding type materials that are here, and how and it leads to a kind of nicely balanced facade of all the different elements that are there, and emphasizes, I think, all the kind of principles that we're trying to emphasize at this point. So I felt pretty good about that, and kind of details going to staff. I did have some comments if this board decides that's the direction we want to go about the mock-up panel, because I do feel like there's some things missing there, but I can kind of wait to comment about that if we feel like that's a good place to go.
I have nothing to add.
As far as a mock-up detailing, I think, go ahead and articulate anything you think is missing, but I think that's usually something that can be resolved on a review by staff.
Mhm. Well, I think in the mock-up, I think that most of the building conditions were met in there, but the elements that feel like they're missing are actually the porch elements, which are the ones that really engage at the public space and probably the most visible elements. So I feel like the top of the porch is being modeled. It's really more the underside of the porch, the way the terrace is being met. I made a few notes here. It was the metal column. I didn't know if just in the drawing, if it felt like it was actually mimicking the detail of the column that is going to be presented there. So I feel like specifically around those conditions, the mock-up panel would need to be adjusted to really treat those elements, like how the board form concrete is transitioning to some of the other materials. Those are kind of more visible elements directly in your face. Then I think the only other thing that might be a possible consideration is where the scuppers come through on the north side. It feels like that condition could be added to the kind of back part of that panel, just to make sure that there's not an element that detracts at that area. But I think those are my comments on the mock-up.
He's over there making notes, unless he's writing poetry, I don't know what it. Well, I'll introduce a motion for preliminary approval with board staff comments and conditions with final review by staff.
There's a motion for preliminary approval with board, city staff comments and conditions with final review by staff. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Mr. Franklin seconds. Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Grantham?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters? The chair votes yea in favor. Is approved 5-0. Nice stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's.
We have over here.
Mr. Matters, I don't believe we will be passing that one now.
All right, we are moving on to item number 5, 31 George Street and 84 Society Street.
Item 5, 31 George Street and 84 Society Street is new construction in High District 6 in the old and historic district. And they are requesting final approval for the construction of 2 new buildings. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we are ready for applicant presentation.
Well, good evening. Nice to see some familiar faces. My name is Mark Petoni. I'm with Petoni Architects. We're the design architect of the program project. I'm joined by Tony Giuliani from Goff Antonio. This is the architect of record. Tonight, we're presenting our project, 31 George and 84 Society. It's a single development that engages 2 very different streets. I just would like to say thanks to the staff and for the board getting us to this point. It's been a milestone. It's been a minute since the last time we were back here. So that's exciting to kind of get to this milestone. From the beginning, this was conceived as one project, however, responding differently yet consistently to both George and Society Street. And I'll start with George Street, and then Tony is going to walk us through the construction documents and how they've evolved. And I'll come back to Society Street, followed again by Tony. So George Street is the more urban of the projects. It's mixed use side of the project. The architecture reinforces the street wall. It engages the sidewalk through an active ground floor uses and reflects the scale and rhythm of the street. The massing, the proportions, and material language are consistent with what was approved at preliminary. Since within, the work is focused on the execution and the coordination through the construction documents. At preliminary review, there were no staff comments on building A, which is this one. The only board discussion, I think, was to confirm that the 3-dimensional elements that we were showing, which was a 3D printed element, was in fact not 3D printed, but actually that was going to be cast stone. And so that's the one thing that we're here to reinforce in our, hopefully, in the drawings. That remains the case. And so with that, I'll turn over that to Tony to walk through the.
Good evening, Tony Giuliani with Goff Antonio, and I'd like to ask for extra 10 minutes because we've got 2 buildings. I think we'll need it. I think we can buzz through it. There's a lot of the details on both buildings are very similar. but just in case. Yeah, as Mark said, there was only one staff comment about the 3D printing, and it's all cast stone material, and I'll go over that in more detail when we get to materials boards on the two different types of cast stone being used. There's the site, which is right now it's a parking lot and with an existing building on it that we got approval a couple of years ago to demo and keep the front facade. That's still the case. This is the existing site plan that was previously approved. This is the updated one. Not much has changed. Still have the hidden garden. The street on the society is still the same, and then same with I think the only difference here was we came in with a different traffic pattern because we were going counterclockwise before we were going clockwise, and that had to do a lot with fire protection and maneuvering around the site plus DOT traffic. It's a recommendation because we're also sharing a lot with the neighbors as a shared entry. Then this is the context buildings. Oops, sorry, this sheet is just legend. The site plan has been approved by the TRC as of last week. We finally got our TRC process. As you said, it's been 2 years to get to this point, but we're there. As you said, it was a complex site to deal with stormwater, power requirements. So we're finally there. Moving forward, this is like the site plan. It's very minimal site as far as landscaping goes. That's just without the notes on. This is the second floor, and inside the center core for the students, or not students, but for recreation area. And this is the rooftop pool area. And details, some standard details from the city all been approved. Yeah, this is really for building B. Those will be repeated. There is the iron fence, which is on the north side of the property, but it's only probably about 75 feet. It goes from the transformers all the way to building B, and that's the only place where we have this particular fence. And then just some more details up on the roof. There. There. Get her on it.
Pop up.
Well,
Hit your
sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then this is again up on the roof. This is not visible by the public. This is get to the pool area. Just some notes. Yeah. All right, so the material board, this was presented at the last preliminary submittal that we had. Everything remained the same. One thing I want to note is as far as like the cast stone at the base of the building, it's going to be solid cast stone. So that up to the second floor, then from the second floor up, it's going to be the lightweight cast stone, which has styrofoam in it. Now this detail, this doesn't show, but the majority of our details will have backing onto it. The manufacturer recommends fully encased for our details and how it's going to be anchored to the building. So they're slightly different than this. And then we're going to, of course, we got the brick, all the windows, going to be the dark bronze, storefront, first floor. Then we got the upper floors, which will have the stow guard, the power stow guard at the very top floor, which is the sixth floor. And we got the Troy Park light. Quick, there's the window. It's a Gelwin Epic Center. It's going to be custom. The color that we're asking for is not the standard color, but it's still the bronze. And plus, we need the inside to be all painted. So when you open up the window, it's not white, it'll be bronze. So it's all. And this window has been approved on the previous projects that we used here, 651, Megan Romney, 501. So it's been reviewed. The railing is aluminum railings. We kept it simple with just straight pegs because of the detailing that we have at the pilasters, as you can see for these details, and they're also in the details and drawings. Just want to keep that simple, and then all the detailing is in pilasters. And then there is a banding that goes around the top floor. Again, that is cast stone. But it has like, I guess, the elongated dental molding. The rendering is the same as the last one. It didn't change, so we left it. There is one thing that I needed to point out that we had to work out with the TRC. This portion of the building right here, we had to push it back about 10 feet because of the existing tree that's there. So working with TRC, we had to go out there and mark the drip edge, and we had to be outside of that drip edge for the TRC to approve it. And then, because this is also the fire access, fire department had said, yeah, we had been able to maneuver to get back to 3/4 of the building on this. So that was the only architectural change that we had on here. The north elevation, previous and proposed, are both the same except for this penthouse. We just squared it off, made it simpler. It's back about 50 feet from the street. So if you look at like from the edges, I mean, you really have to go far back to be able to see it. So. Oops. All right, so this is the east elevation. As I said, we pushed this portion back.
Tony, let me ask you a quick question. That's the one that we spoke about earlier.
Mhm.
You look at the balconies that seem to come out of the north side of that in the previous, but they don't in the bottom.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah.
On different elevations, it shows a false balcony and others, Julia.
Yeah, so, yeah, so when we did the rendering, we accentuated the column or the balcony so they can be cast a shadow. So when we started drawing it, we didn't catch it in time. But they're really supposed to be like the Juliet balconies, they're just attached. And because they're arched, you can't go over 18 inches to the center of the point. Otherwise, the structure becomes very detailed, very dense. You just can't bolt it to the building like you can now. So, so working with the structural engineer and the manufacturer, we just pulled it back. I think it was like 30 inches, and we pulled it back to 18 inches.
So they're false balconies.
The false balconies. Yeah, we don't want anybody out on these balconies. I mean, it's now these ones here, these are like balconies, but they're supported on 3 sides with walls. So the ones that are out here, those are all just attached.
By false balconies, you just mean that they're shallow, but they're still accessible?
No, they're not accessible.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want anybody out there. That's
So they were extended out only so that you could create a shadowing effect
for the rendering. Yeah, and then when it got drawn, we didn't catch it until later. When we got into the CDs, we realized, well, wait a minute, we can't. This wasn't the original intent, so we had to pull it back. Yeah. One thing to note is we are using the condensing units up on the roof. We're not showing any screening at this point, so we want to, like we've done in the past, and once they're installed, if you can see them, we can install the screening. We've got the support there, the structure to hold them up if we need them. But as far as if they're not visible, we didn't want to have to like screen. So that's why I'm not showing the screening right now. Then if you see this stuff right here, this is really the balcony that's for the pool. It's hiding those walls around the pool. So seating and planting, that's what those. And then this is the south elevation, which is the same. And then the east, I'm sorry, the west, that's the same as here. And then critical sections. Sub-parking pretty much stayed the same. And then this is the first floor previous, and then this is the proposed showing the indent. And then the upper floors stayed the same, previously proposed, with except for where the indent is. Plan, the pool, and the equipment. that's the proposed. And as I was noting, the cast stone details, I should say, up to the second floor, it's a solid precast. And then once we get to the upper floor, then we start to see the lightweight concrete precast. Standard details. The mock-up drawing doesn't seem to be in here. No, this is building B. But we do have a mock-up. So, sure. Yeah. Yeah. So did you want to say something about building B before I go in?
Well, I guess, did you want to take them as two separate projects or?
Do you have any questions?
We can do them together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, right, most efficient, right?
Right.
Cool. So, so then we have our project on Society. So Society, by its nature, it's much more quiet street. It's more residential in character, and its design responds accordingly. So here, the project begins more with preservation. So we have the historic building at the front of the site, and that's retained. The new hotel then is set back to frame it, allowing the historic structure to remain primary presence along the street. And so that setback creates a forecourt entry sequence. In addition, the hotel, and you'll see that on the site plan, the hotel opens to a second garden space that's to the west. Together, these outdoor spaces, they extend the hotel experiences while reinforcing a more calmer character on Society. At preliminary review, there were no board comments with that. I believe there was a single staff condition related to the tree, to the street tree placement. And that was addressed through the TRC process, and that's going to be reflected in the landscape drawings that you'll see. And then turn back to Tony for that.
Yeah. All right. One of the board comments last, and then also a TRC comment, was we had to have the 10-foot sidewalk because of the existing building. The previous, we had a little gated wall aligned with the existing building, but we pushed it back. So now we have a 10-foot sidewalk from the existing building down to the property line, and then the existing building, the facade moves in and out. So it varies anywhere from like 8 feet to 9.5 feet. And so, and we did, you know, we are preserving the brick, but we did manage to find a very close match. So if something happens, we're able to get a good match to it. It's going to be tricky because you got to bring it up to code. So we have to demo the existing building and save that wall. And how do we save that wall? You know, sandwich it, and then of course we're going down about 18 feet with parking garage. So it's going to be a job. This is a demo plan that was approved a couple years ago. This is some context of the index page. This is, yeah, like I said, this is the wall. Said we move back. It has a gate. Then as you enter into the gate, you're going through a series of arches. And then we have this hidden garden that is going to be used as event space, wedding space. It'll be accessible to the ballroom here in the hotel. Let's see the notes. And then this is the rooftop pool, and its landscaping and layout. And then the details. And here's the gate. Some details. Again, this project was also approved by the TRC last week. Some more details, and then the arches. Oops. Yeah, so we have site lighting, but it's all low lighting. We're not uplighting the building. We do have lights on the building. But they're only at the first level, see on the elevations. And then here's the material board, which is again, the same material board that we presented a couple of years ago. The brick is still available. Windows, again, the Epic window, custom. And the existing bricklayer was able to find it, and same with the railings. We're gonna keep the railings similar. And then the existing railing on the building will be taken off, cleaned, repaired, and put back up. This is rendering, same change. Perspective. And this is the south elevation, which is previous and proposed. There was no changes. This is the west elevation. We had a couple of changes here where we added some more storefront doors into the lobby. And then we added some additional windows on the 6th floor penthouse condominiums. Then on the north elevation, again, they're pretty similar, except for we did add some windows on the condo floors on 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then we had a window for the valet. And then here on the east elevation, we added windows at the 6th floor and the condos for that floor. Typical section. Yeah, and again, as far as we have the mechanical equipment that's up on the top of the 7th floor roof, as you see from the site lighting, it's not visible. So again, we do have the structure there. If it's visible during the final BA walk, we'll stop. Same thing. All right.
Mr. Giuliani, you're at the 20-minute mark. So if you wouldn't mind wrapping it up soon.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, skip through the floor plans. And then hopefully this one will have the mock-ups in it. Similar details, just a little bit of shape, same concept. Okay, there are no mock-ups in this drawings. That's different than yours. So we do.
It's just a final, not a final plus.
Right, no, we know we'll have to come back for that. But yeah, we'll we'll have two mocks for this project, one for building A, one for building B. Right now, we're planning to have both mock-ups located in the hidden garden area, because that's going to be one of the last things that we build. We still have to maintain a means of egress for those buildings there, so we still have some working out, but we'll work with the contractor in final locations, but that's the intent. We know we have to come back for the final mock-up.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is it mandatory that the board would use the mock-up?
No, it's only if the applicant wants the board feedback, make sure everything's shown, which I know in 162 Ashley's case, they wanted to make sure if there was something missing, they commented. But that's usually, the drawings are usually established.
Keep it clear. Are there any questions for the applicant?
The staff here for approval of mock-up details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for what they're
Yep.
gonna build. Yeah. Yeah, the drawings of what they're.
Any questions for the applicant?
So outside of the Juliet balconies and the fenestration, adding the windows to the top level of Society Street, what other changes have been made to this project since its last approval?
Those red, I do, yeah. Okay.
And the balcony, the faux balconies, I didn't pick that up. I mean, how many of those are there?
So it's on the north
Okay,
elevation,
you
there's
put the
probably about
elevation.
eight to 10.
Okay,
Yeah, there's not that many,
it's all on the north alley.
the north side,
Yeah.
George Street.
George Street.
I think A12.
Looks like there's 8.
They're all on George Street?
They're all on George Street.
They're all on George.
Right, there's two sets of balconies there. One is, the recessed balconies, and then we have the Juliet balconies.
And maybe we could put that elevation back up.
A12.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share it. I'm looking back at your last proposal. And even the blocking shows them as full Juliet balconies extended out, not just. I mean, here,
Full disclosure on that, slot, those were actually never intended to be occupied. That's why they were at 30 inches. And so then they were, as we were coordinating with structural, that seemed to be a little too aggressive. And so that's why they were pulled back. So they were always Juliet in form, never meant to be.
well, I think that there's a difference between it if you want it to be load bearing versus it being just presented as such, right? If they don't need to be accessible.
They don't need to be accessible.
Right. But the design needs to be what we approved.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Understood. I guess through coordination, that's why we got to this point, why they were back. So that's the.
Well, I think we can discuss that more during the board commentary.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that they were never intended to be fully occupied. Only the ones that are in the recesses and supported on the 3 side.
So. BA06.
Are these Juliet balconies, are those accessible?
No, they're not accessible. These, this is, built into concrete. So we've got the structure in there to hold those up, but no, they're not meant to be walked on.
But that's the Society Street side.
Yes.
And they're in both. They're in the current. plan.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. At this point, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application?
I'm Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. This project has come a long way since the first conceptual review and really shows the value of the BAR process in yielding architecture that's responsive to its environment. As this project moves forward from final review to permitting and construction, thoughtful planning to avoid potential structural impacts to surrounding historic properties is critical given the highly sensitive nature of the surrounding environment. We ask that final approval be conditioned on the provision of a detailed plan that describes how the applicant will monitor, manage, and mitigate vibrations generated by construction activity. And we'd also like to note that transparent communication with nearby property and business owners will be essential to these efforts. And we look forward to participating in these conversations as a King Street neighbor.
Thank you.
Utility the Historic Charleston Foundation, we have received multiple concerns from neighboring property owners regarding potential impacts to their historic building during construction, particularly during the piling management process. Fragile historic buildings surround this parcel on King George Society and Meeting. Although this project has been approved by the BAR, its construction should not cause damage to historic buildings that surround it. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we'll move on to your city staff comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Stacy Smallwood. I actually own 312 King Street and I operate at 312 King, 312 and a half King, and 314 King. So I'm directly affected by the project. So I appreciate the Preservation Society and Historic Charleston Foundation and their concerns, because I share the same concerns, not only as a property owner, but as a small business owner in this community for almost 20 years. So I am concerned about not only what it will do to the building, but the increased concern with traffic and population downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? City staff?
The project received preliminary approval by the board on 13 December 2023. There are 2 buildings labeled A and B as part of the submission. The applicant has met all TRC requirements in multiple rounds during 2024, 2025, and most recently. For building A, staff had no comments at preliminary, and board discussion centered around confirming with the applicant that the 3D material is for profile display only. And as they mentioned, the applicant confirmed that 3D printed was just for display at that meeting, and that it will be in fact cast stone. For building B, the board had no comments in discussion, but at preliminary and staff condition was as follows. Society is a narrow and quiet street, and street trees are desired. However, please confirm their locations through zoning, as they appear to encroach on the 10-foot sidewalk minimum, etc. The applicant has addressed all street tree issues to the satisfaction of TRC and received their approval. While applicant did not set up a preview meeting with staff, given that this project is at final and based on the application at hand, the staff are comfortable with packages for buildings A and B as submitted. I will note that we did not catch the balcony issue either, so those comments were written before understanding that, and a preview meeting, which is standard practice prior to submittal, would have helped us understand and talk through some of those particular issues. Because that's a significant change from what was approved prior by both previous staff and board. Staff conditions, any modifications to approved drawings required for code or fire department compliance or contemplated during construction must be approved by the BAR prior to undertaking the changes. Any modifications, substitutions to the materials or elements approved at final BAR hearing must be specifically noted, reviewed, and approved on the mock-up sample panel. Deviations from previously approved submissions, if determined by BAR staff during or after completion of construction to be a downgrade of the quality of the project and inconsistent with previous approvals, are not approved, whether noted or not by staff during our review of 4 permit drawings. All construction work is to consider adjacent or nearby structures and the protection and monitoring thereof. If any work involving significant vibration may be reasonably suspected to be a threat to historic or new adjacent or nearby structures, a program must be in place addressing how these structures are to be protected and monitored. A copy of this protection and monitoring plan is to be transmitted to staff for review before work. Then our boilerplate, there's no signage conveyed at this meeting, and you need to submit a separate signage package when you're ready to do so, so that can be part of board review. Staff recommendation was made prior to understanding that there were changes to the balconies. So just remaining neutral on that at this point, because I've not had time to consider that issue.
Thank you. You hear the applicants like to respond to public and city staff?
Yeah, we appreciate everybody's comments and staff, and we'll certainly comply. And we, for the concerns of the neighborhood, we have it built into the construction schedule, construction budget. So we will be meeting with all the neighbors regularly, and we will put up crack monitors. Somebody is going to be helping us out. So we're fully aware. So we want everybody to be happy.
Thank you. This board discussion.
I mean, the balconies can do. I remember thinking about this balcony, so we reviewed it the first time. I know it changed in review. Certainly doesn't diminish all of the hard work that's gone into it. plan, but it was a change that I wasn't expecting to see. I'm not one for balconies that are fake to begin with, so I didn't realize that, how fake, I mean, that we're not gonna be accessible, excuse me. But they did add a detail to the north exterior that was important when I was reviewing this previous.
I agree. This is not the first time it's happened with this project where there was a discrepancy from one hearing to the next. And going back and looking at the amount of detail that was previously given on the extent of those balconies, to say that it was a rendering issue, is tough for me. But they don't need to be accessible to me as much as they need to be in line with the design that was previously approved.
Meaning in terms of the depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not load bearing, then their depth is really just a matter of simple detailing. If they're not supporting any live load, then why are they not at the previously considered dimension? And just to make sure I understand, these are balconies that are attached to the facade, and the windows that are behind them, or the doors that are behind them, are fixed, they're not off.
Correct. Yeah, just to point out, if we go with the 18 inches, it's code and we can bolt it to the building. If we go back to full depth that we had before, then we got to take the structure into the building, and then we have like flashing details and everything. So it's doable. It's just
What was drawn, oh, I'm sorry, Jake. I didn't-
Yeah, that's it.
What was drawn before? What was the depth of what? You know,
they were 30 inches. Yeah, I don't know if you could pull up the elevation, you could see the previous proposed. So we pulled it back about half the distance that it was before.
And the windows go to the floor.
Pretty close, about 8 inches off the floor. So, but yeah, but they're gonna be locked, that we can't open them and go up, because we don't want anybody on, this is, it's in the school district, I mean, they're gonna be used by students. We don't want them out on the balconies. Not these ones.
Aren't the good students?
Oh,
Aren't they all?
exactly.
The balcony gate. I'm at 24 inches now. Yeah, no, I've been thinking about the whole faux aspect, and does it matter if they can go out or not? And I know we certainly are not in the business of faux things in Charleston. But I suppose if the balcony is legitimate and there's a big window that theoretically could be accessible, I think that that's okay. And so then it's the question of the depth and is that extra depth necessary? I wasn't here to review it the first time. So I guess I'm neutral to the depth debate.
A quick clarification, so the other balconies are accessible?
The recessed.
The recessed ones?
Mr. Julian, we should have been saying this, when you're answering questions, can you be at the microphone so that,
Just so we can hear on the,
yeah.
The recessed ones are accessible.
They are accessible, but they have load bearing walls on 3 sides.
Okay, so it's not really a matter of accessibility of the balconies if students are there.
But it's,
Okay.
well, yeah, but it's the external ones, which was a concern. I mean, right now, the windows are operable, but they're locked to only go up 4 inches for natural ventilation. They're not meant to be. And again, we don't, like I said, we don't want people out on those particular balconies. Because there was, there's the water intrusion aspect of it, there's the structural aspect of it. Then we started detailing it, during, design. We didn't catch that when we went from preliminary to final, that, hey, wait a minute. So we just took a rendering and sketched it up. This is our fault because we went from one firm to another and we just drew it. So it wasn't until we got into the details that we realized. This is what we really meant to be here.
One of the other issues, I think it might not be issues, the screening of the mechanical. Only because I think we've all seen it too often that these things do end up being visible to an extent. And I think procedurally, if you wait till the end, like when BD come out to the site, puts everybody in a difficult situation.
We've done this in the past where we didn't have to do it and we had to do it, but with today's mechanical equipment, the seismic curbs, we get them load bearing. So then we're able to attach the screening to the curbs. So the structure's there. So when we walk with Lawrence, he says, I see it, then we can put them up. And there's, like I said, several projects that weren't visible, and then there was one that was.
Yeah.
That's good. And that flexibility is now recorded on YouTube forever.
Okay, I think we have enough questions.
Well, I did have, sorry, one other question, but it's not about the balconies. I'm sorry. It's on it's on page BA08. It's actually about the lights. The lights in the previously approved are all centered on the columns, and in the current proposed, there's a series of lights that are not centered on the piers between the windows. And I was just curious if that was a drafting issue or if that was.
That's a drafting issue.
Okay, so they're all gonna be centered
They're all
on the
gonna be
pier.
centered.
Okay, I figured that was it, but I just wanted to confirm it. That was my only question about that. And I guess my take on looking at the balconies is this is my first time seeing this project, so I'm kind of coming at it from a fresh perspective, and I don't know what. One of the things that I actually appreciated, especially about the Society Street facade, is that even if the balconies are intended to be used or not intended to be used, they don't look as if they're just something applied to the facade, especially on the George Street side with the way that they're encapsulated into the cast stone. They don't feel like an element tacked onto the building. They actually feel integral to the architecture that's there. I think on the George Street side, on the north side, there are the balconies that are included in the recess. There's a variety of different architectural elements on that north side. So I guess, be okay with the Juliet balconies being removed because you have the recess balconies and then you have the large move of the hyphen in between. So there's a lot of varied architectural interest on that side, but I don't think the balconies are necessarily contributing as much. I feel like there's a different consideration on either side. And so that was just what I noticed when I looked at it. I didn't understand that there was a part of this that had been talked about it preliminary.
Well, I would say that for the most part, the changes are pretty benign. The change in the depth of balconies does really change the presentation of that facade. If it was on something other than a primary facade, I don't think we could really be talking about this at all. But it's really rare to run into noticeable changes in the composition of the facade at. And I know that it probably adds cost and complexity, but that's really beyond our purview. And I think that if we move this forward to final, we need to stipulate that the original composition and depth of those balconies be returned to what was presented and approved in preliminary.
Sounds like a motion in the works.
And can I just suggest that I think it's reasonable in this case to make separate motions for building A and building B, if board so desire.
Well,
yeah.
If I was going to make a motion, I would make a motion for final, and I would just include that as a condition.
Gotcha.
Because I think it's been a long journey, and we love y'all to death, but I don't think we need to see this. So I'll make a motion for final approval with board and staff comments and conditions, adding specifically to return the balconies to the depth approved at preliminary.
There's a motion for final approval. The board and staff comments and conditions with the board condition to restore the Juliet balconies on the north and the south to their original depth. With final details to staff. Is there
And then final review outside.
final review by staff? Is there a second by Mr. Metters. Mr. White. I can't see your name, Jeff. Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Trantham,
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown,
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters? Yes. The chair votes yea in favor. Thanks, guys. It's getting late. Thank you.
Mr. Metters. Yes. We love your presence, but we request your absence.
Well, so I don't know what they want to see. Well, I usually sit in the hand room. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for sticking around. We are now on to item number 6, which is 126 Cumming Street.
126 Cumming Street is a category 1 building circa 1816 in the Olden Historic District. And they are requesting final approval of exterior color changes and stucco on a category 1 building. Lawrence is going to orient us to the location. And then we are ready for applicant presentation.
Is the applicant here?
I am. It's been a while. Yeah. I'm Betty Prime. I work for Mallard. I'm an architect and conservator. He just stepped out, but this project has been going on now for several months. But throughout the process, we have continued to do analysis of the building and the materials. And we are requesting today a color change for the exterior stucco and the paint as a result of some additional findings that we have found since construction began. So you'll see here that we are requesting for the stucco to go back as a natural cement. This is based off of petrographic analysis of probably 20 samples. We also did research in the archives and found a reference, which I have copies if you guys are interested in, but a newspaper article that is actually a request from the church itself for workers for Roman cement installation in 1818. So we're seeing in our analysis that this was originally natural cement, and we're also seeing this in archival records. So our request is essentially to go back with that exposed natural cement render without the application of a coating. So it will have that brown appearance. And I brought a sample of the original stucco if you guys are interested in seeing it. And then we have a custom color match from Edison Coatings, which is one of the few companies in the United States that makes a natural cement that has a similar composition to what was there originally. And then I think I showed several examples of some of the cross sections that we looked at from. Okay. So this is a rendering of essentially what we're requesting. So you'll see the exterior of the building has this kind of natural earthen brown color. This is characteristic of a natural cement. Typically, when you have a building of this nature, they will have scoring that makes it look like stone. There's a lot of different examples in Charleston that you'll see similar to this. First Scott's is an excellent example. 24 Meeting Street and several others. Over time, a lot of these have been painted. So they're appearing as, painted stucco buildings, but we found based on our analysis that this in its original state did not have an application applied to the stucco. In addition, we are requesting to paint the doors and windows green. This is also based off of scientific analysis in our laboratory. Here are several images that shows the cross sections that we analyzed. What we found was there was originally a gray primer with a
kind of mid-tone green color applied to it originally. So this would have been in the 1818 appearance, and this aligned with the exterior natural cement stucco. So today we're basically just asking the BAR for approval to restore this building back to its original appearance. And I think one thing to note, we have, as part of the project, added back several elements that were removed. So there were some elevated sections at the corners of the parapet wall behind the pediment that have points. And then we were also restoring back original elements like the rosette window and the elliptical, and all this aligns with this same time period that we're requesting for this color change.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Is there anybody here from the public who would like to speak on this application? Yeah, thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. Okay, thank you. City staff comments?
Sure. Because this is a category 1 building, it necessitates board review. Based on the applicant's thorough stucco and paint analysis, staff support the color selections as shown in the micrographic studies of the original stucco and paint. We have no staff condition. We recommend final approval with final review by staff in the permit.
Would you like to respond to that?
Thank you.
Or discussion?
Makes all the sense in the world and is well documented and supported, so I'll move for final approval with final review by staff.
There's a motion for final approval with final review by staff of the permit. Is there a second?
I second that.
Mr. Trantham, Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Trantham?
Yay in favor.
And what's happened?
Just like
Mr.
Brown.
Brown.
Yeah, in favor.
The chair votes yea in favor.
Just run through the colors, you'll get it.
Eventually.
We need to start calling Mr. Trantham Mr. Pink.
It's the candlestick in the library.
Motion passes 4-0.
Use myself.
I'm like, I'm gonna get my stuff back.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Trantham, if you, oh, yeah, you will have to come back in.
Yeah, I'll come back.
I forgot which one.
I noticed that we have something after that.
Sorry about that.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, which is 134 St. Philip.
So 134 St. Philip Street. The other direction. Is a category 3 building circa 1887. In height districts 2.5 to 3 and 4 in the Old City District. They are requesting an appeal of staff decision to deny a roofing material change from slate to copper. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then we're ready for the applicant presentation.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here today. My name is Chris Berwick. I'm a parish member of St. Patrick's Church on 134 St. Philip Street. Our goal was to take the old slate and remove it and put the steeple roof into a copper with 20 gauge on the flat and 16 gauge on the trim. And the main reason for this is because the slate is falling off the roof and we have safety problems with people being injured. And we've had some close calls. That's the driving force for this. And the slate, let's see if I can know how it works. Oh, wait a second. I want to show you where we're at on the slate. This church is very, very old. Here we are. This is what we are today. You can see some dark colors there, slate missing and so forth. And we probably lost about 10%, maybe 20% of this. If you go back, what we're proposing is this, and that is a copper steeple with a fine detail. We're not changing any of the fine detail of the steeple. We're just keeping it as is, and it's covering it with copper. That's pretty much the story. We're going to have scaffolding around the steeple, so we won't be bothering traffic or anything like that. And we expect it to take us about 8 weeks to do. The outfit DLV is the one that we're using, and they have done a lot of copper roofs. And the artisans are coming from North Carolina with supported construction in South Carolina. That's my story.
Thank you, Mr. Berwick. Are there any questions for the applicant? Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application?
Maybe Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. First, thank you to Mr. Berwick for his time this week to discuss this application. The Preservation Society was so thrilled when we saw that St. Patrick's Catholic Church had received a National Fund for Sacred Places grant at the end of last year that will enable exterior restoration of this important historic house of worship. And we are fully supportive of efforts to make this building more resilient for the long term. We completely empathize with the issues of safety that have been cited. But based on the documentation that's been submitted and the presentation tonight, we're just struggling to understand what has been evaluated to date and really what is the source of the failure that's occurring. We have some questions that I just want to bring up for the board's discussion tonight. So one of them in the package, there's mention of repairs that took place to the steeple in the 1990s. So I think it would be helpful to better understand what material that exists on the steeple today predates those repairs, how much of it is historic material, how much of it may be original, what was the quality and nature of the repair that took place in the 1990s. Another question is just have the decking, the fasteners, the exposure and the thickness of the existing slate been evaluated to ensure uplift resistance. And we just ask that the rationale for this request be fleshed out a little bit more fully, just because the existing slate roof is incredibly detailed and is a character defining feature of this church. And so we just want to make sure that we're fully understanding the nature of the need to make such a drastic material change, although we do acknowledge that copper is a very high quality material. And we do acknowledge that many steeples in the city today are copper. There are very few, Mr. Berwick made a good point, that there are very few slate steeples existing today. So we're taking all of this into consideration and just bring up these questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? City staff comments?
Certainly. The requested appeal stems from an in-person interaction with staff at the City Permit Center in December 2025. The applicant sought approval to change the steeple roofing material on the southwest portion of the church from slate shingles to copper. While copper is not considered a material downgrade from a BAR perspective, proposed change would alter a character defining feature of the building and differ from the original roofing used at the time of construction in 1887. Additionally, a copper roof would not replicate the existing overlapping and diamond shaped shingle pattern characteristic of the current slate installation. For these reasons, staff denied the proposed change in material at the administrative level and advised the applicant to seek board review and approval. Staff conditions: if the appeal is upheld by the board, the existing shingle pattern or configuration found on the existing steeple needs to be considered in some way in what comes next. Regardless of the roof material, the applicant must apply for a building permit before beginning construction, and any additional repairs to the steeple not outlined in this application shall be in kind. Otherwise, they would require coming back to the board.
Mr. Berwick, would you like to speak to address either of those comments, but public or city staff?
Yes. I'm an engineer, mechanical, material. A lot of the things that you have today on my pack was like the blister pack. The slate situation is that when you have slate, it tends to brittleize. And over time, well, asphalt brittleizes faster, say from 10 to 15 years, like on your roof. And you get a crack and then all of a sudden the asphalt on your roof starts to blow off because it got brittle off. That same phenomenon or same situation is with slate. Slate has an oxide in it and it tends to dry out. If the slate was maintained, could be flexible all the time, why would it not fall? Why would it not fall off the roof like it is today? It's falling off today. Now, the rationale to go into copper was the best choice because it would not allow the copper to fall down to the ground, nor when you look at slate, slate is going to fall on the ground and the updraft, if you have a category 1 hurricanes, 138 miles updraft on brittle slate, it's going to snap and drop on the ground. This is not true with copper. Now, as for the detail we said was going to be exactly the same. As a metallurgist, you could take 16 gauge copper and put it right on the ridge line and make it extremely precise along with the flat roof. So we're going to have a 16 gauge with a flat roof, and it'll be certainly nice and tight, and we'll be able to make sure that that tightness is there so we don't get any weathering. This is a common practice in copper roofs. And in fact, today, even if you use aluminum in your house, it's the same process. So even though I do appreciate the comment from the Preservation Committee, the two rationales will maintain the precision of the roof and the detail around the windows. We will maintain the 20 gauge and the 16 gauge. We will put scaffolding so we don't interfere with anything. But the history of this church is over 200 years. I couldn't tell you what happened in 1959 or 1750 when they put the slate up. I don't know what type of slate they had, how they used it. It wasn't documented like it is probably today. So I can't really ever give that question a heads up. But I can tell you that the best slate in the New England area is in the best slate on the United States that most people use is usually in the granite states like New Hampshire or Vermont or some places like that. But the problem about slate is that we're going to have the same problem in 15 years. And we'll be back at the BAR board asking for us to put the copper roof back on as an option. That becomes a cost situation. We're a small church. We're about 350 people. We're a small church. We don't have the luxury of what I've seen tonight where there's a lot of financial support. But we do have the detail work that has been done and we will maintain it. You look at some of the work that has already been done in the past, in the last 10 years, it has been very consistent of the detail and keeping the beauty of the church. And that's what we have been doing. And this slate story is not a safety issue, but we don't have the documentation like when they did it in 1880 or something like that. So it's impossible for me to address the Preservation Society question because I wasn't here. They did this one. And some of you weren't even born at that time. That's a bad joke, I'm sorry. But anyhow, that's where we're at, okay, at least mine.
Thank you. Board discussion?
Well, in cases like this, I mean, everybody is sensitive to the fact that, you know, it's a small parish. It's a 140-year-old roof. But that said, I think staff, well, I know staff made the right call because we have preservation guidelines in our ordinance. And so staff is just looking at the ordinance and they're applying it. They're just like, that's what it says. And you've heard the phrase character defining a couple of times in the course of this conversation. And the steeple of that church really is. And the detailing of the slate is a big part of that. And I understand that sometimes the preservation of our historic architecture can be a challenge for small institutions. There's all this money flowing around Charleston, but it doesn't seem to flow into the pockets of the small institutions that are stewards of our most important buildings. And I just don't think we can go about messing around with the steeples of historic Charleston. So I'm in support of upholding staff's decision.
So. I agree. Some of what you said tonight about the longevity of a slate roof, the success of a slate roof. I don't know how old the slate roof is. Church, it's 50 years old, 150 years old. Either way, it shows the success of slate roof. The condition your roof is in now, yes, I agree, it is dangerous. I think it should be removed as quickly as possible and temporarily dried in, but I think the slate on the exterior of that should be painted and reinstalled. Now, I'm also, Mr. Rogan, I'm trying to figure out, so many congratulations on the grant that you got. That is outstanding, and the church certainly deserves it. But I have a hard time understanding how either through archiving history or the National Park Service, they would approve the change of material on the outside of that street.
They did.
It's very interesting.
Mhm.
Surprise.
It's surprising to me too. I didn't
Yeah.
think of that.
And then there, you really, that's the only thing I won't get into, Mr. Chairman, but it's like you really don't nail a slate shingle on you, hang it. And it's not intended to be tight, it's intended to have mobility to it, to move in the wind. And I think if it's installed correctly, you can have another very long lasting roof. And, yeah.
I don't have anything to add.
I'll make a motion to uphold the staff denial with board and staff comments and conditions.
There's a motion to uphold the staff denial with board and staff conditions. Is there a second? Mr. Metter, second. Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
Yeah, in favor.
Mr. Metter, how do you vote? The chair votes yea in favor. All right, Mr. Robert.
Okay, so we're going to end up doing, we have to go with a slate, we can't appeal.
You can appeal the board decision. Before you were appealing the staff decision, now you would be appealing the board decision.
But so right now, the agreement is, I have to go with slate, that's what I mean.
We can work with you outside of this meeting, to have you connect how we go about how a board decision would work.
What? Use 30,
This process. I have before you the update of one policy and the creation of another. If it pleases all of you, I'd rather just quickly run this through both of those and then can take any questions that you have. For this first one, if you recall, in December, you were asked to approve a series of policies. You all got first bite at the apple, and then it went to small. Following small, so I'm zooming in here, small added 3 words unless appropriately concealed to this paragraph, and they approved this. So that is what we are now coming back. So you approved this without those 3 words. So small added 3 words. We're asking you to approve what small approved. So that is the one adjustment. And then the other is, as all of you are aware, there was an amendment to the ordinance made in late fall that then required a series of procedural things to be put into place by staff. We had to work through a lot of questions with legal first, and now we're at the point where we need to do policies. This new ordinance amendment has moved quickly because Small already has 2 items on their January 22nd agenda that are part of this new opt-in review. And remember, this is just for historic materials demo purview, which used to only review demo, and now applicants may opt in to having what comes next be reviewed. So we needed to establish the way in which the board would approve, the small board would approve, have a discussion and then be able to make a motion and approve. So through discussion, not only internally, but also in consultation with both preservation groups, as well as legal, we made a determination that area character appraisals for the appropriate neighborhoods seem to be the best guide because they're incredibly thorough about what's going on in those various neighborhoods. And so now we're going to launch an effort to create more of them to cover all of those areas. So since we only currently have 2, that what we write in the bottom half is basically what constitutes an area character appraisal. For those neighborhoods that don't have them, these are the items by which the small board would be looking at to make sure that an applicant's what comes next is appropriate for that neighborhood. So this is what we're at. This also was approved by Small last week. And they will be the primary reviewers and users of this particular policy statement. So that is it for me, to rather entertain questions that you specifically have instead of just monologuing.
So when we met and we had, I had comments that I made about.
Yes.
Did those get incorporated?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They did. But then they added those 3
Oh, yeah,
words.
I think-
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah, so yeah, the large stuff was all approved by Small based on your commentary, but now they had their own commentary.
We put an exclamation point at the end and send it back to them.
Oh, you just really make it to that ground on Daisy Asco.
Don't make pretty emojis, etc.
Face.
I'm fine with everything that's presented here.
And we need to make.
Yeah, we're gonna go through the
public
process.
comment before.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
No. What this matter is. So.
We just want to make sure since there is somebody still in the room.
I did sit on the BAR small as I was kind of transitioning to come on to BAR large as well as kind of a member there as well. And this is a significant improvement because as we were reviewing applications, I mean, you would have to look at something and it'd be a corner of a roof cut off and something else down. And you're like, I have no idea what these drawings across this are actually doing. So I do think this would be a very helpful tool. And especially given the fact that it is opt-in by homeowners, I think it is very helpful to see, okay, why are you demoing something at this slope and then at that slope and then back down this slope, and how does what's going next to it relate to that? It is really helpful to give a sense of what's coming next.
So if you exercise this opt-in, does that enhance your opportunities to be able to take advantage of the state historic tax credits also because you're under the program? Or like it's because most, I was just saying, it's just.
No, I thought that those were tied to National Register District, whether you're contributing resource.
They are, but
Yeah.
there are layers to that.
Yeah.
And some of these houses may be in a historic district.
Yeah, anything in Hampton Park Terrace.
Hampton Park and. Yeah, I was just interested.
I think it's a great question and something we should look into.
It doesn't have, I know it doesn't have anything to do with it, so I was just interested.
I guess do you have a city staff recommendation?
Rather than be self-serving, but we would like to have this officially in place for the January 22nd meeting, since those are the first 2 applications going forward. And staff also, in some ways, because this is new and we had to create a bunch of documents, a bunch of things, we've said to the preservation groups and other people, we kind of want to have some cases come through, and then based on what's actually happening, then make adjustments to everything, because I think you can only put so much into place until we see what happens when we start getting applications. Since we have the two, we'd just like to have something in place that then the board can point to as how they're conducting their review.
There's a lot of frustration, I think, from applicants whenever I was an alternate member on there, because they'd be like, well, I submitted what's here and now I have to do a whole other set of drawings that takes out everything that's proposed and only shows what's being removed on the existing. And it was a very like complicated, convoluted process through which they had to present to. So I do think this is actually probably a benefit to the public who we're here to serve too.
I'll introduce a motion for approval of policy statements for alternative energy and opt-in review.
There's a motion for approval of the policy statement for alternative energy and the policy statement for opt-in review. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Mr. Trantham seconds. Mr. White, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Brown, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Betters? The chair votes yea in favor. Mr.
Almost called him Mr. Pink.
Motion passes. Thank you.